I've heard it repeated time and time again that in order for the ruling class, the satanic ruling class, to do something to the unsuspecting slave class, that they must first telegraph it. They have to tell you about what they're going to do to you before they do it. I've heard lots of people say this, but I've never actually heard anyone explain where this idea comes from. I mean, if you really think about it, the idea isn't a new one. Think about how many fables there are in which a man makes a deal with the devil only to discover later that they were so wrapped up in the gift that the devil was bestowing on them that they didn't pay close enough attention to the fine print of the contract. You see, the devil, despite the power of his seductive nature, it seems, at least in mythology, that even he has to fully inform his prey of the consequences of accepting his gift before he can take their soul. So maybe this is the origin behind the idea that the ruling class has to fully inform their victims before they can feast on their souls. Maybe this is some kind of twisted moral code that they feel alleviates them from any kind of wrongdoing. Maybe it's some kind of twisted logic that justifies in their heads their predatory existence. There's really no way to know if this really is the modus operandi of the evil that's managed to pool and congeal at the top of the power hierarchy. But if it is, what then is the fine print that we're all missing? Where do they telegraph the consequences of allowing them to rule? Where is this obscure legal language that describes in detail exactly how they plan to ruin us? Some people suggest that the ruling class utilizes the same methods to communicate these hidden clauses in the social contract, the same way they communicate a lot of things they don't want to openly admit. They use Hollywood. And probably because there are so many instances that when examined closely, it does appear as if that's exactly what's happening. You know, the age-old argument of, is it art imitating life or life imitating art, kind of gets pushed aside when some of these movies seem to depict future events with such stunning detail and accuracy that it seems that the only way this could happen is if the artists themselves had prior knowledge, or as crazy as it might sound to a lot of people, maybe they're even instrumental in the planning and the execution. One example of this is the film Wag the Dog. Wag the Dog is so close to reality, it doesn't even seem like it's the ruling class telegraphing what it is they intend to do. It seems like it's an instance of the ruling class rubbing it in our faces. Wag the Dog was released in 1997, and that's important to know because this was well before 9/11 happened, and it predates any popular understanding that there was a deep state by decades. This is also a time before the internet was widely available to the public, so almost everyone got their news from the networks owned by billionaires that sometimes act like quasi-government agencies, like CNN, or newspapers that are owned by billionaires who have very big contracts with the CIA. Wag the Dog was produced and directed by Barry Levinson, who just so happens to party in the Hamptons with Bill Clinton. That's a significant point, not just because it shows his deep state ties and his ties to the ruling class, but because this coziness that Hollywood producers have with the ruling class, something Levinson is deeply aware of firsthand, is reflected and depicted in the film that he produced and directed. So if there's anyone equipped to give an accurate accounting of this, it's going to be Barry Levinson. In the context of today, it's easy to look back at Wag the Dog and kind of perceive the opening of this film as laughing in the audience's face. Even the title itself could be viewed as part of this obscured legal language of the ruling class. Wag the Dog, on its face, just seems like an entertaining wordplay. It's not immediately apparent that there's any deeper meaning to it. Most of the public will see these words and just think it's a humorous but meaningless phrase. And so the film, in its first few moments, tells you exactly what it means, knowing full well that by doing so, it's not giving up any secrets to the sedated audience. It's simply giving them what they crave: amusement. Why does a dog wag its tail? The film asks with pleasant, unassuming serif font with patriotic yet folksy music kind of playing in the background. Because the dog is smarter than its tail, the answer comes. If the tail were smarter, the tail would wag the dog. They are telling you in just a few words, in just the first few seconds of the film, that the way that the world works is that the intelligent manipulate the unintelligent. That is the meaning of the title. But it goes beyond that. Since the title is Wag the Dog, not Wag the Tail, they're also saying that what you perceive as being the intelligent force behind world events is the complete opposite of reality. And they're smugly telling you this literally in black and white before the movie even starts. And before they tell you how they do it. If this film is telegraphing, it's doing it plain as day, as those who are behind the film are laughing in the faces of the audience before the movie even begins.